"It would indeed be a betrayal if we all left him," said Aragorn. "But if he goes east, then all need not go with him. Nor do I think that all should. That venture is desperate, as much so for 8 as for 3 or 2, or 1 alone." Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we are discussing something that I've always been fascinated about since I first learned about it and read it. Aragorn's plan for the Fellowship of the Ring after the fall of Gandalf, but before the death of Boromir. Related videos are in the description and cards, my friends. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. In the aftermath of Gandalf's fall in Moria, which would result in the end of his time as the Grey Wizard, Aragorn was tasked with leading the Fellowship of the Ring onto Lorien and beyond there, wherever that really would be. However, Aragorn notes in the tale that he struggled to guess Gandalf's mind and was worried about the results of his own decisions, and what such results would be for his friends and the world at large. From Lothlorien down to Anduin and Parth Galen and the Falls of Rauros, Aragorn had time to reflect on his charges, namely the legacy of his own line and the destiny of Andúril returning to Minas Tirith, as well as Frodo's journey with the ring. After his time of reflection, upon the green lawn beside the river Anduin, after Frodo resolved to walk and reflect on his own, Aragorn and the others, or most of the others as Boromir would slip away from the company, discussed their path forward. Some thought they should have a vote to continue east or to go to Minas Tirith with Boromir. Aragorn knew that this at least was no true answer. While they would be tracked by Gollum if they continued east, and perhaps others, it was still closer to their destination, closer to the fire and the ring's destruction than Minas Tirith was. Therefore, Aragorn proposed the following plan, one that he had been thinking about since Moria or Lorien, that he, Gimli, and Sam would go with Frodo to Mount Doom, while Legolas went with Boromir, Merry, and Pippin to Minas Tirith. Now, this plan has always fascinated me, and has made me even more curious about what specifically Aragorn had planned concerning the utility of each member in the party. For one, Aragorn knew that Boromir was bound for Minas Tirith regardless of what happened. And I've always thought it somewhat odd that he would actually send Legolas to Minas Tirith instead of maybe going there himself in this plan, especially carrying the sword Andúril. However, if we acknowledge the nature of Aragorn, this decision of his actually makes more sense. He would never pawn off the harder work on others, going to Mordor instead of Gondor, and he would take this burden himself, even over securing his kingship and throne. Furthermore, of the Fellowship, he was certainly the best tracker and knower of roads of the world, and he knew that he would have more use in this part of the party than the other part. Aragorn would need another hardy warrior with him, and so Gimli seemed perhaps the more obvious choice than Legolas, yet perhaps that is also because he saw Legolas as having more diplomatic skills than Gimli, should he go to Minas Tirith and speak with Denethor. Perhaps, too, Gimli was more stealthy than Legolas, especially with his elven spirit. Continuing on, we have Sam, who Aragorn knew would never be separated from Frodo, and that though he was not a great warrior, he would be a good and attentive companion for Frodo, rather than getting them into trouble. In this way, Aragorn at this point had not seen sufficient evidence that Merry and Pippin, however, should have gone on this adventure at large, as they had not really accomplished many, if any, great deeds during this part of the story yet. Therefore, he most likely thought they would be safest in Minas Tirith out of anywhere they were headed. Now, with Legolas in particular, Aragorn makes it sound as though he was least sure of sending him to Minas Tirith, thinking that the elf should go there, but only if he could be talked out of continuing with Frodo, especially because Legolas would have voted to go to Minas Tirith himself if such a vote was called for. Again, perhaps Aragorn was also somewhat concerned about the light of any Eldar, even Legolas in the Land of Shadow, where, as Aragorn put it, the venture was as desperate for 8 as it was for any few. One problem with Aragorn's plan was that Merry and Pippin intended to follow Frodo wherever he went. However, the words of Sam would also change Aragorn's opinion on the situation, as Sam knew Frodo better than any of them did, and knew that perhaps Frodo would wish to go off to Mordor and not drag his friends along too. Aragorn then relented and wondered that since he was the ring-bearer, perhaps the fate of the burden that was on him would drive him one way or another, either towards the fire by himself or with his friends, and perhaps their intervention on his behalf, them as the company, wouldn't really amount to anything, as there were greater powers at work. This whole plan is just so interesting because of the assumptions that Aragorn was needing to make as a leader at this point in the story. And while he was right in some of those assumptions, such as the fact that his skills as being a guide and tracker would have been a great boon for Frodo and Sam in places such as the Dead Marshes, Aragorn could not have known at that point just how wrong some of his other predictions were. And this, of course, was not his fault. He did not know how fully the Fellowship was about to shatter after this, with the death of Boromir and the capture of Merry and Pippin and so forth. But also he could not have known just how important he and his companions were going to end up being in Rohan and Gondor in particular, or how beneficial the presence of Gollum was actually going to be for Frodo and Sam, something that would not have ever happened had Aragorn continued with them. And for his most flawed assumption, but one, again, that was not his fault, as it seemed to be the assumption of every free person, was that if Frodo made it to the fires of Mount Doom, he would actually be able to cast the ring into its unmaking all of his own volition and free will, or at least with the encouragement of his friends. But again, knowing what they all knew at this point in the tale, this was the greatest plan Aragorn could conceive. Yet we do know how it would have ended in ruin. Assuming Boromir survived, Legolas, Merry, and Pippin would make it to Minas Tirith, I think, with little trouble, while Aragorn led Frodo, Sam, and Gimli through the Emyn Dead Marshes, and so forth quite easily. Yet Rohan would have been left to fend for itself, even assuming Gandalf the White would have helped them. Without Merry and Pippin and the Ents, Isengard would not have found its defeat so handily. Aragorn potentially could have led the ring through the Black Gate, using his skill as a ranger, or perhaps even through one of the Towers of Teeth and into Mordor that way. But again, without him and Gimli and Rohan and Gondor, those kingdoms would have faced unmitigated peril, and without Gollum, the ring would not have been destroyed, even if Aragorn led Frodo to Mount Doom without issue. But this is a fascinating way that Aragorn almost shifted the tale of the Lord of the Rings, had the events of Amon Hen not happened as they did. What do you all think of Aragorn's plan? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know which other plans in Middle-earth you'd like to see me discuss next. With what he knew, does it make sense Aragorn thought this way, or should he have thought about a different plan? Let me know. And so, my friends, we come to the end of our tale on what was Aragorn's plan after Gandalf's fall. From this tale, we see that while we should try to take heed and make strategic and tactical plans, we are not the masters of fate, and must adjust to the changes life casts our way. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed today's Middle-earth Explained video. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts on all of this? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some Weta or United Cutlery Lord of the Rings swords, statues, and other replicas from Castle Con, who does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout. And please check out our merch and Patreon. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members: Peter Shepard, Brother Scouten, Merton, John Hume, Elizabeth Calvert, Maz Gibbs, Reese Jenkins, Arthur, Merlin, Dale Davis, Kingswall Project, Robert Bogue, Theodore, Moon Viper, Andrew Carlisle, and Zumi. Thank you so much to all of our patrons and YouTube members. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the free peoples today. And I'll see you all again next week with a video on why didn't the Valar do more against Morgoth. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.